Welcome to season 14 of the Parenting Aces Podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we are talking mental skills with Nicole Discenza. Nicole is a recent college graduate from Boise State, where she played 4 years of college tennis. She was recruited from her home country of Venezuela to come to the States and play, and had an incredible experience at Boise. Went on to get her degree in psychology and recognized that there was a lot of work that needed to be done on the mental side of training junior tennis players. And so right during her college career, she started doing some coaching and recognized that several of the kids that she was working with really needed some guidance, some training, some leadership in terms of developing their mindset on and off the tennis court. And so she is here this week to share that experience with all of you guys and to talk about the type of work that she's doing with young players and with coaches and parents as well to help our kids be the best version of themselves, which is, of course, what we all want. So sit back, relax, enjoy my conversation with Nicole Discenza. Nicole, it's so nice to meet you. Well, not in person, but at least face to face. So we've communicated via text and we've had phone calls, and now we get to actually see each other. And I'm so happy that you're available to do the podcast. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this such a great platform. I think that when I first saw the name on Facebook and I kind of learned what it was about, I was like, this is great. This is what we need. This is a great initiative. So I'm super happy to be here.
You're sweet. You're sweet. So what I like to do with first-time podcast guests is to have you share your tennis story, how you got started in the sport and where it has led you.
Yeah, so I started to play tennis when I was 4. It was really funny because I was doing both tennis and ballet. And after my first presentation, and my parents, when they went and watched me dance, they realized that wasn't my forte. So we just went straight to tennis. I told them from the get-go that I wasn't going to be a ballet dancer. So I was more on the sports environment. I played tennis ever since I was 4. I started to compete when I was around 6 to 7, so pretty young. And then from there, I just really loved the sport. My dad played tennis when he was younger, so it was easier to me to start on this environment and this amazing sport. And then after that, I just started to compete even more and realized I didn't only like it, but I was actually good at it too. So yeah, I was 10 to 12 when I started to realize this was the life I wanted to go. This was the path that I wanted to follow. So it was tournament after tournament, weekend after weekend. Where are we going next? And I think that was the point of my life where I started to get more opportunities. I started to play for the national team. I'm originally from Venezuela. So that's the fun part of when you start being a junior, that you can actually start traveling more and just representing where you come from, which was really cool. I went to a lot of South American, the Confederation South American tournaments, where you kind of get to play to get a spot to represent your country at the World Cup. So I did that once when I was 14, got to go to the World Cup. I always tell my friends that my fun stories that I got to share the same tournament as Coco Gauff, and we got to like record videos. Like, it's so funny. I have like videos with like Coco dancing and with like Carlitos Alcaraz dancing, because we were all the same age. So it's crazy. Tennis world is real small. But yeah, it's been a great journey. That was when I was about 14, 15. Then I got the opportunity to come to the US to be on a tennis academy that it was super focused. It was morning and afternoons practices and everything. It was homeschooled. Did that for a year.
Where was that?
That was back in Florida. It was in a city called Wellington, so a bit more up north than Miami. It was a great experience. It was the first time that I was actually getting out of my house to live this dream. And it ended up a year after because I decided I wanted to go back home to pursue the college career. But I learned a lot. First of all, I learned the language, which was really important, and then I just made a lot of connections, and I learned a lot about tennis. So that was great. And yeah, after that, I just came back, kept focusing on my journey, on my tournaments, traveling a lot again. And I think it was junior year of high school, is that when you start to get college recruits calls and all these things, and you start to like, oh my gosh, is this a place I want to go? Like, how do I do this? So again, I had great help from my parents and great help for people around me that did it before me. So I was happy, and I was lucky enough to find Boise State, I spent my 4 years playing college tennis. I just graduated last year. And yeah, from junior to college, it was also a big transition to me. I think last 4 years were definitely the years that taught me the most of life in general through tennis, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I spent the 4 years playing at Boise State. I got a psychology degree. I got a sports coaching certificate. I'm an athlete at heart. So even though I'm done with the peak of my tennis career or all the goals I wanted for myself, I'm still somehow feeling that it's not done yet for me on this tennis path.
I love that. And I love that you went to Boise. That's where my son played his sophomore year. We've talked about that. So very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a beautiful campus and lovely coaching staff there. So yeah, that's very cool. And so you graduated last year. What are you doing now?
So I'm currently working. I'm a psychology major, and my big job at my Monday through Fridays, working as a behavior interventionist, which is with kids on a high school setup, or sometimes high school, sometimes middle schools. But my actual mission and what I'm doing for what my actual career I want to create on is working as a performance coach, or a mental performance coach. And I'm working with kids in between 10 to 18 years, young tennis athletes, specifically athletes that want to go through either both paths, college or try to play pro. And yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I started to coach when I was a junior at college, and realized that even if it wasn't as a tennis player, I still wanted to be involved. And yeah, when I first started to coach, I saw the importance that mental performance and just mental skills had behind everything. So I took a moment, and also every time I went to practice and I went to my little athletes, they were like, have you realized you talk a lot? And I'm like, I've realized that. Yes, thank you. And yeah, it was through that I realized that I did wanted to keep being involved in this community and help as much as possible. And I think that's where I can contribute the most. That's one of my strengths. So
you have created a platform called Mindset by Nick. What does mindset mean in your opinion? What does that refer to? Because we hear that term thrown about quite a bit. And I think it means different things to different people.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And I think it's funny because when I started to think about all these things, I believe that the first thing that came to my head was the same question, like, what is this? Because I feel like when you're a player, you always hear this concept of like, you have to have good positive mindset, or you have to have good thoughts, or you have to always be positive. And never anyone says like, this is how. So to me, mindset by Nick's, it's just a way I'm not only telling you, hey, this is what you need to work on. This is also how you do it. When we talk about mindset, we talk about your thoughts, your beliefs, who you are, what shapes you. I talk about to my athletes a lot that self-judgment becomes self-fulfilling thoughts and prophecies. So pretty much what you believe is what you create, and what you believe to be is who you actually are going to end up being. So it's a platform where, and it's a project and a program where I am encouraging athletes to think outside of the box, to think of them more as who they are as a person, and to help them fully achieve their dreams and goals through the work of the mind. And how can you get there?
And I think what's so interesting, and this is part of the conversation you and I have had on the phone, is that, we all hear tennis is a microcosm of life, right? And there are all these life lessons to be learned on the tennis court. You have found that to be so true for yourself and decided to expand on that and help show these developing athletes how that works and the things that they can do to positively shape their thoughts. Doesn't mean that we're getting rid of the negative thoughts 100% because we're human and it happens, but more of how do we train ourselves to have more positive thoughts than negative thoughts, right? It's not that we're aiming for zero negative thoughts. We're just aiming for more positive than negative.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because to me, I won't lie, this is probably one of the things that got me the most upset when I talked to my coaches. And it was the fact that they will be like, you always have to have positive mindset, positive thoughts all the time. And it's like, that's actually not, I won't say it's impossible, but that's actually very, very hard to do, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and we're human beings are doing something that they care about. And when you care about, your feelings are involved. So your feelings are going to go high when things are going good, and probably low when they're not going that good. So to me, this concept of like, you can't feel, or you can't have negative thoughts, is not something I preach. I believe that whether you like it or not, you're going to have them. How are you going to be able to channel those and to stop them from actually getting on your head is what is most important. And so when I work on that's actually a big module that we work on my program, because it's always this concept of like, hey, what are your current thoughts? What happens when you lose a point? What are you thinking? How can we reset? How can we reset that bottom? How can we take that from not judging with emotions, but judging with conscious? How we consciously judge a mistake that you made on the court without putting emotions on it. I think that's, to be fair, that's one of the biggest parts when we go through this, and when athletes are able to see what's outside of that thinking and what can actually create with the tools and stuff, with everything, they actually start to first of all, they start to enjoy more of the sport, which is, to me, again, one of my final results. What I just want you to enjoy what you're doing, because when you're enjoying what you're doing, you're being successful, you're being happy, you are probably also winning more. So when you start thinking about it as just judging by consciousness, is when you actually start to improve your mental skills. So we go through a lot of tools like splitting the times in between points, and being like, whatever happened on this point, you have 3 seconds to feel it, and I literally want you to count it on your head. So whether it's and not only talking about negative emotions, right? This is also positive. Whatever you felt on this point, I want you to feel it for 3 seconds, and after this, you're gonna let it go. I don't know if, and I think everyone saw it, but I think the commencement speech that Federer gave, he really talks about that the point that you're playing is the most important point of your life. And after that, the point that you're playing is the most important point of your life. So it really doesn't matter whether you win or lost that last point. The point that you're playing is the most important one right now. So to me, is again, it's finding that. And I've learned so much through my athletes, and so much about them, and how not everything works for everyone. And I've had people that we have to go through all the lists and through all the tools and everything, but that's the fun part of it. I want to be able to help you figure it out through that journey.
I love that. And it's so interesting, because I feel like, mindset, the mental part of the game, that's become kind of a buzzword in tennis and really in all youth sports. But there is a difference between being mentally tough and being skilled in your mindset, right? And having tools that when things aren't going the way you want them to go, to do that reset, that mental reset, and to do it quickly, because in tennis, you only have 20 seconds between points to do that reset. So this isn't something that you can spend 10 minutes on. It has to be, very quick. It has to come into your mind, and you have to act on it immediately and then move on to that next most important point, as you said. What are some of the exercises or drills, or I don't know the terminology that you use with your program, but can you give us some examples of actionable things that you give your athletes to practice?
Yeah, there's, again, you go down the list with every single player, and I think the important part of this is to give it enough time to any strategy for it to realize if it works or not. Because I'll have players that are like, I used this for my last practice and it didn't work. I'm like, yeah, well, it's the first time you used it. Did your first forehand ever actually went the way that you wanted it? Probably not. So yeah, it goes down the list. A very, very common one that my players really seem to like and seem to work for them is just to put a little sticker on your racket. Either sometimes I like to use the word reset bottom. It depends, it is always personalized for the athlete what that means. Sometimes it goes back, a lot of athletes I work with, they go back to, why do I play the sport that I play? So sometimes their phrases are like, find your why, or just why do you play? Why are you here? There's athletes that like to be more honest with themselves. So I've gotten like messages like, just go for it, Rachel. And it's like, it's just the sentence that they had, just go for it, because I think, and again, when we think about negative thoughts and emotions, this just comes from like the stress and the pressure to win a match and everything. And I think when you start learning that there's things that you can control and there's things that you cannot control, and if you shift your mindset to the things that you can't control, you're never going to be successful at it. So a lot of it is putting phrases that like, play freely, or what does it look when you're having fun? There's people that like rhetorical questions, and this is one that it seems to work a lot. I have a couple of players that put it on their shoes. They actually write it on their markers on their shoes, and it's really, really helpful. Sometimes, again, especially when it's not college, tennis players are very alone on the courts. They don't have any coaches whatsoever to remind themselves. So what are tools and ways that you can put it? People that wear not headbands, but wristbands, they put it there. Some people like to sit down and grab a book during the breaks. That's usually the one that works the best on those situations. Again, it works because you've put in the work before and we've worked together to make it work, right? It's a tool that is implemented at the moment, but because it was perfectionated before getting to the court. Because that's also a point that we kind of don't think about it. Yes, the tools are made for you to use them at the court, but yes, we have to build them up to you so they will be successful and personalize them to you. It's not like you're gonna pull up and, well, maybe all players are different, but it's not like you're gonna see a TikTok video where how people do it and then you're gonna go do it and you'll be like, oh, well, this didn't work. And I'm like, yeah, that person probably has over a month thinking about what they're gonna do, right? So again, it is very personalized to the athletes. The concept is always the same, finding ways to channel your emotions for you to play your best and help you play your best. But it always comes with the acknowledging of who am I, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. There's people that hate to read. So I'm like, okay, let's apply the seconds. You like to count. You like to read, do you like to count? What do you like to find a specific spot on the court where you're like, okay, this is my only spot where I get to feel emotions? This is actually a good one. it's called the heart spot, I used to call it, but it's like find 1 square feet of the court where you are allowed to feel everything. After that, after you're away from it, you're no longer able or allowed to feel. You're allowed to plan. So again, there's many ways to go around it and tweak things for athletes. But my main focus is just to really get you the knowledge so you can start applying it yourself. Because that's the main thing too. I think when it comes to confidence and when it comes to performing at the level that you want, it's built of 2 things. It's built of the experience, and it's also built of the knowledge that you have, right? So the experience playing tournaments, we're always super worried about that. We're always super worried about practices, tournaments, another tournament, another this, another that. That we have. All the players that I work with, they have experience. They've played tournaments. They play tournaments every single weekend. But the knowledge to know who are you under pressure moments? Who are you when you're performing your best? Who are you when you had a bad day at life and you still need to go and play a match? Who are you when you had a bad day at tennis and you still have to go to your cousin's birthday, you know? So it's finding that balance. It's finding that balance and understanding that who you are inside of the court is the same person that you are outside. So you gotta you gotta learn how to best help you in both parts of life.
I love that. You talk about practicing this, that you can't just do it one time and expect it all to work perfectly. How do you advise junior players to integrate practicing this mental side of their tennis with the physical side of hitting balls, movement, fitness, and all of that? Because it all has to work together in order for the player to find success. And by success, I don't necessarily mean winning a match or a tournament. I mean walking off the court feeling as though you have performed at your best level that day.
Yeah. I think, and this is the good part about it, and this is also something I learned through my own experience when I started to think about these things. Mental skills, again, they're transferable skills. You can be working on their 24/7 if you want. So when it comes to tennis practices and tennis matches, I tell my players, every single chance you have the time to do it, because you're going to have it. You're going to have breaks in between drills. You're going to have breaks in between points if you're playing points. These are skills you should be applying and practicing every single day, outside or inside the court. This is something I learned myself. I remember, and this is part of it, but I was way too perfectionist. I couldn't let things go. And it wasn't only in tennis, it was in my whole life. And yes, it took me to very far places, but at the same time, it got to a point where it was getting on my way. And I remember it wasn't even a coach. It was one of my uncles. He came to me and he was like, do you need to learn how to just let a bit things go in everything you do? So I was, I was that kid that I will hear my family tell me thanks, and I'll be trying to like reply back and be like, no, but like, I know what I do this. And then I actually sit down with myself and I'm like, yeah, they're probably right. So you start learning that especially the skills, these are skills that you need to be practicing every single day in your practices, whenever you are taking an exam. How do you prepare to your exams? You study a lot, right? So it's kind of the same thing. How do you prepare for practice? What do you do? Do you pretend this is a match? How do you prepare when you're on a match? So all these things, when I talk about it, this is something that you should be thinking about daily. And I know thinking about daily, it's hard because there's a lot of other things that you're thinking about, but that's the goal. You're thinking about daily, so it gets to a point you don't even have to think about it. You're just ready to do it, right? Just like your forehands and your backhands. When you practice your forehands or you're changing your grip, you're consciously thinking about it. And then it gets to a point where you're not longer anymore having to think about it. It's the same. It's the same. And again, I think the way that the tools are done for each athlete, this is something that you can apply when you play. This is something that you can apply when you're cooking. they are just, they're always, you can always have the conscious power and election to do these things. And it doesn't have to interfere with your tennis or what you're doing. It's supposed to actually help you get through those. So yeah.
How important are rituals on the tennis court, in your opinion?
Very, very. I mean, when we talk about tennis, we talk about, and every single player says it, and I think stats say it, and it's like you sometimes win 51 points and your opponent won 52, right? So what does that tell you? Pretty much it's a sport of consistency. And when you talk about consistency, you talk about doing the same thing over and over the same way. Maybe it won't come with the same results each time, but if you allow yourself to be consistent, you allow yourself to have the best chances to have that result being the same way over and over. So rituals, from knowing how many times you bounce the ball to how many seconds you take on your towel to what you do before you play a match, what you do after you play a match, what you do 2 days before you play a tournament are very important. I think there's also a line in between rituals and like beliefs of like, if I take the left side of the court, I win, but then the right side, I'm losing. So the amount of things I've heard when it comes to this is a lot. So, and I was there myself. I was like, I prefer to be sitting on the left side. I prefer doing this. And then if I didn't have it, I was like, oh my gosh. But there's a line there. There's a line in between, again, what you can control and what you cannot control. And when we talk about rituals, we talk about what you can control for you to get more confidence about your game. So very, very, again, you're just hitting all the points of my program. There's a specific module where we talk about rituals, and we talk about, first of all, for the player to understand the importance of it, and second, how they look to you when you're serving, when you're not serving, when you're changing. Do you take a bathroom break? What do you do in the bathroom? What you're thinking about? What's and it's all part of it, right? Because again, your opponent you can never control. That's always going to be so different. What you can control is what you do, and what you do with your time, and what you do with your habits. So to me, and what I've seen and the results and my own results, consistency is key. And again, rituals to get that consistency is probably one of the bases and the first step to any consistency in tennis.
And is that something that you feel like players need to implement from a young age? Like you said, you started playing tennis at age 4. Did you have rituals on the court at age 4? Or was that something that you added to your game as you got a little older, a little more experienced?
Yeah, well, when I was 4, I was probably thinking about the ice cream my mom told me I was going to get if I won that match. So I'm not entirely sure if I was thinking about rituals, and I do understand that now. I do believe, as anything, the earlier you start learning, the more you experience you will get, and again, more of a transfer of skill when it comes to mental skills and everything. It's also a skill that it evolves, right? So it won't look the same. Your rituals won't look the same when you're 4 rather than when you're 14, and that's fine. That's how it's supposed to look. But yeah, they are just like anything, just like learning a forehand when you're 4. Probably your forehand now that you learned it when you were 4, it's better than your forehand if you would have started learning when you were 12. So it's the same concept. It's the same concept, and it's that awareness of this part of the game that I want to be a voice of, and I want to be able to help people that want it as much as I can.
Is there a point at which it's too late that, you've missed the opportunity, you can't do this now?
Well, and I'm a full believer that it's never too late for anything in life. And again, when we talk about these things, we talk about this, a part of my knee that probably has been more injured than I don't know what, but this transfer of skills, they are with me. They stuck with me my whole life. And I learned them. I started to learn them when I was 15, 16. And yes, I would have loved to learn them when I was 12 or 10. but it's something that it sticks with you regardless of what you do. So again, I think that the main focus as well through sports is just that safe environment where you can learn all the skills that you're going to need for life. So no, I don't think it's never too late. I think regardless of where you are in your tennis journey, these are things that you will be able to see that will also help you in any other aspect or any other area you have in your life.
Do you feel like the junior tennis coach, the on-court coach, can also be the mental skills coach, or does it require a separate person or a separate session to actually learn these skills and then to be held accountable for them? Because I'm asking you this because I feel like a lot of times tennis coaches are really good at teaching technique and tactics and strategy and those types of things, but maybe not quite as good at understanding and explaining, teaching the mental side of tennis, the self-control, the rituals, the why behind the rituals. They may be good at teaching, oh yes, between every point you're gonna, do the Maria Sharapova thing where you hop, turn to face the back fence, you go to your strings, you stay facing the fence for X number of seconds, then you hop, turn back to face into the court, and you're ready to play the next point. They may be able to teach that, but without understanding the why, a lot of kids aren't going to adhere to those rituals.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you answer yourself. I believe that yes, tennis coaches are really good at tennis skills. And I do again believe if you put in the work to actually learn and take the time to care about this area for your player, you can be a tennis coach that teaches both. But again, there's this key that I don't see as much, and it is the awareness of it, and it's the caring of it. I still see, and we're not on a different era than we were time ago in tennis, and I see more of this, but I still see a lot of just working on your tennis as through your techniques, and if you miss a ball, it is very important. Like it is very important. I'm not taking any importance out of it. It is super important at the end of the day. That's what is going to keep you accountable for everything you do. But you have to take a step back too and realize if I'm not open to what you're teaching me on my forehand, or if I don't know how to make that feedback don't hurt me in some way, I'm never going to be able to learn from you. So I think any tennis player, even if they're not specifically focused on developing their mental side, should have some knowledge of like, how do I connect with this athlete? Because at the end of, how do I connect with this athlete on a matter outside of the court? Who is this person? Like, what does he like? What do they want from life? I think I asked this question so many times to my players. Is the first thing that I go to. It's like, who are you? Who are you? And it's crazy.
And what are you looking for when you ask that question? What type of answer are you looking for?
I'm looking for non-tennis answers. And I always get a lot of tennis answers. So I know that this is always a two-steps question. I know I say, who are you? And they tell me I'm a tennis player and I'm this and I'm a good volleyer, or I'm a good server. And I'm like, okay, now who are you without tennis? And then it's crazy because it takes a moment for them to like, who am I? And I've been there. Who am I? I feel like it's on us as parents and coaches to help and to mentor young athletes to understand that they're not only what they see on the court, and that's not going to be their only goal, right? So yeah, that's what I start with, and believe me, I've spent hours on this question just with one person, but like, no, but think about it. Who are you? And they're like, I don't know who I am. I was like, yeah, let's start there. What do you like? Who are you? Are you a big brother? Are you a young sister? Like, what do you do? I always say, I'm a Lego fan. I love Legos. I couldn't live without Legos. What about you? Like, all these things that, again, to me, came to my realization when I started to see the mental work behind the scenes. And when I thought about them, I was 16, 17 years old, tried to figure it out by myself. I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am outside of the tennis court. And I don't think tennis parents in general or tennis coaches in general actually look at this with the seriousness it requires. Because again, tennis is great and tennis is always going to be a part of my life and you're always going to enjoy playing and but at some point, even if you play pro, at some point this is going to have an end. So then what? That's the awareness, and it's it's not a thing to be scared of. It's just a thing to be aware of. And it's crazy because sometimes it only takes that question, and right off the bat, athletes start to perform better because now they know that their confidence is not only about who they are as tennis players and if they have a good or bad day. Their confidence is also about knowing they're great kids and they're great sons and great daughters, and they do. I've had a player that he was an amazing a piano player, and I was like, he will send me videos of like this is what I do when I'm not in tennis, and I'm like, how did that didn't come to your head when we were talking about this question? This is what I mean. And I think that's with everything in life we do. I think sometimes we just get very narrow in our vision and we forget that life it's composed of so many other things and you're so much more than just an athlete.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you were saying about the confidence piece of thinking about yourself as not only as a tennis player, but all these other pieces. And I think, the confidence is one area, but also it, from where I'm sitting, would seem, and I am not a psychology major, so please correct me if I'm misstating this, but if a child can see themselves not as only one thing, it then takes pressure off to when you have a bad day at tennis, it doesn't have to mean you have a bad day. It just means that one thing was maybe not so great today, but then I get to go be all these other pieces of myself and have an opportunity to make it great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the main point of it. I think, yes, being an athlete and a tennis player is always going to be a big part of my life, for example. It's always going to be a big part of my life. And I'll forever think of myself as an athlete, as a tennis player. Do I believe that's the only thing that defines me? No. And again, I think that's a conscious job that you have to do. And when you're older, you have to do it yourself when you're older. But the point of it is to shape this younger minds to see and understand that there's so much more than just tennis. And it's, yeah, when you talk about this and you talk about, that's what I'm saying, like as soon as we get this figured out for them and they realize they are also so many other different things, they start to perform better. Like we probably haven't even talked about rituals. We probably haven't even talked about emotions or how to best channel them or how to not let your emotions control you. But the fact of just knowing that there's so much more of you than just a racket and a ball, it's so freeing. It's so freeing. And I experience it myself. I see it when I see my players and I just talk to them and a lot of
I just lost
they
you,
have
Nicole.
that.
Nicole, I lost you for a second. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
You said a lot of players. Sorry.
You got a lot of So a lot of players I've worked with, again, they're just start to perform better as soon as they see this and they keep constantly asking this question of who am I? I keep reminding them this is something that we talk about at the very beginning of my program, but this is a question that the more that we go through, the more that they discover more things about themselves, and the more they are able to actually find that. and to just go out there and have fun. Tennis is I love tennis. God, I love tennis so much. I have so many things because of tennis, but if tennis happens to end up tomorrow, I know I'm a great daughter. I know I'm a older sister. I love my little brother. There's so many things out there. I'm a person that loves to help people as much as possible, likes to give back to the community. I love Legos. I know I said that before, but I think it is important. It is important to know who you are outside of a tennis court. It is very important because, again, when you have your foundations of who you are very settled, when one crumbles, the other ones are able to hold yourself. When you only have one and that one crumbles, then we have a problem.
Right. I've shared this story before, and I'm going to share it again because it's relevant to what we're talking about. But when my son was in seventh grade, sixth grade, he decided he wanted to be homeschooled. And so, seventh grade. And it was the day before he was going to be done with his school and start homeschooling. And I had picked him up from tennis, and we were actually sitting in the car in the garage at our house. And he had been really quiet the whole ride home, which was not typical for him at that point. And I said, are you okay? What's going on? Did something happen at tennis today? And he burst into tears. And I said, oh my God, what's going on? What happened? And he said, what if it doesn't work? And I said, what if what doesn't work? What are you talking about? He says, what if I homeschool and I'm playing and training and I'm still not good enough? And I said, my gosh, you're already at a level that you're always going to be the guy that everybody wants on their team. Like, when you're 40, your skills today are going to be so much better than all the other 40-year-olds out there. You're always going to be like, what are you talking? Like, I was just floored that this was happening, that he was having this emotional, experience in the backseat of the car. And he's like, no, what if I'm giving up school and I'm giving up going to parties and all of this just to train, and I still don't get to go play college tennis. And I said, so what? Like, think of all the other things that you're good at. He played drums, and he's also a younger brother. Oh. And, like, there are all these things and so it was that epiphany, but he was already, I think, 13, when we had this conversation. And it was the first time that we had really kind of taken that dive into who are you if you're not a tennis player. And it was a really important conversation to have. And it was just the beginning of many more conversations along those lines. But, it hurt my heart so badly as his mom to think that I had let him identify himself in this very narrow way, that he had this fear that if he wasn't successful, that he was a failure in every way as a person, right? And that felt really bad to me as his mom. So I think this is really important, what you're saying, is having these conversations with, especially, our kids that are already so stressed out from all the pressure that they're under, but helping them understand and really think about, who am I other than a tennis player? Because yes, that's part of who I am, but it's not only who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think your son being able to verbalize that just talks about your guys' relationship. And as himself as well, being open to those things. There's many players that have great relationship with their parents, but they will never be able to vocalize that to them or to be able to take that off their chest because it's just too scary, right? And I think that's a part of this job that we don't see. And I'm not only talking about like parents or coaches, I'm talking about tennis players ourselves. Like, we don't actually see this as a very important thing to talk about and to work on. And when we think about it later, then it just becomes a bit harder to tackle, right? I think that it's very important you talked about success, and it's very important to, what is success? What does success look like? It's success the same as goals. To me, success is taking what you wanted, or taking something that you really wanted and giving your absolute best, and knowing that whatever happened, I have absolutely no regrets. That's, to me, my bar when it comes to success. And crazy enough, when I stopped worrying about the outcomes and I stopped worrying about the actual goal itself, I go even further. Do you know what I mean? So I think sometimes it's that realization. And again, these are things that are important to talk about, because it's not like parents don't want to be helping their kids. Absolutely, they want 100%, especially tennis parents. Oh my gosh, my parents were all over me all the time, like practicing everything, and everything I am today and everything I've achieved, I owe it to them and to every single effort they put on. These are just things that slip out of our consciousness. These are things that you would have not thought about unless your son told you. And again, I think that's the key. That's the importance of it. It's things that we don't know are happening, but they're happening on the background, and they're going to affect the perception of your reality, whether you like it or not, because they're always going to be there. So yeah, it's a big important point. And I think the more awareness us as a community we can give to players, athletes, coaches, anyone, the more that we will be able to actually start sooner and just get rid of this athlete only mentality and start playing the drums like your son. I love the drums. I wish I could play the drums. I always tell myself that one of my goals in life was to learn how to play the drums. Still on
Never
it.
too late. Never too late.
Yep. Still on it.
Yep. So Nicole, if parents are interested in finding out more about what you do, and if tennis coaches are interested in finding out more so that they can help their players, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so I currently run my program, majority of it, through Instagram and Facebook. So my Instagram is Mindset by Nix. This is where you can find my program account. My personal account, still tennis related. It's at Nix.D. Still, you can message me on both. My Facebook is my name and my last name, Nicole Discenza. You can send me a message, shoot me a message there, shoot me a message on my Instagram, and we will definitely have a chat and see how can I be best help for that tennis family.
I love that. We will have those links in the show notes on ParentingAces.com. And if it's okay with you, can I share your email address as well with our audience?
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So all that will be in the show notes, again, on ParentingAces.com. Nicole, it is such a pleasure to chat with you, to get to know you a little better. And I hope you'll come back and, maybe in 6 months, and let's see how things are going with your work, and maybe you'll have some more stories to share with some of the players that you're working with, and maybe even some of the Parenting Aces community members will have contacted you at that point, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I do want to encourage everybody watching or listening to this episode to at least check out Nicole's Instagram or Facebook, whichever platform you prefer, and really look at the work she's doing and think about how that can be integrated into your players' daily training and what they're trying to achieve, because the mental and emotional side of tennis is hugely important. We've devoted lots and lots and lots of episodes and articles to this topic, but knowing exactly what to do and how to do it and when to do it is tricky. And Nicole's figured out some really tangible methods and conversations and topics that need to be tackled and addressed, and I hope that you guys will reach out to her and let her help your kids. So Nicole, again, thank you so much. It's been so fun.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I could be here sitting down talking about this for hours. But yeah, thank you again. And I think this is one of the projects, the one that you run, that gets me the most excited, because this is what we need. Again, this is what we need. We need a community of people helping people. And I think, I'm honestly not gonna lie, I think out of all the projects I've had the opportunity to hear about, this is like one of my tops, because I think this is a really, really good initiative. So I'm really happy to be part of it, and I'll be really happy to be here in 6 months, a year, 20 years, and so on.
I love it. Nicole, thanks again. To my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.